Trucker Dump, episode 139. In today's show, I'll explain some newly proposed hours of service rules so you can go leave your comments for the FMCSA. And speaking of safety issues, we got a couple of truck recalls, yet another inspection blitz, more about ELD compliance, more about platooning, man, that'll never go away, and you better watch out in Minnesota. We'll also discuss the laws behind drug and alcohol screening and sleep apnea. Then we'll hit on deceptive factoring, yet another carrier shutting down and leaving drivers stranded. Oh boy. Should you be paid for sleeping? And finally, your chance to be a superstar on TV. Trucker Grub's going to point us to some yummy Cajun food this time around. In the feedback section, we'll hear a tailgating story of a guy stuck in the middle of a truck sandwich, a funny story about sleep apnea, taking a large dog on the road, and what the heck is slack. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Volvo Trucks. Check them out at volvotrucks.us. Hit it.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by abouttruckdriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey there, Trucker Dumpers. How's the summer treating you? For those of you new to the show, my name's Todd McCann, and I'm a 22-year truck driver. I'm also the author of 2 trucking ebooks. One is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and the other is called Trucking Life, with a really, really, really long tagline that I won't repeat here. And hey, according to the review on iTunes, Nickname431 says, "Wow, this is the best podcast. Todd McCann is the best host ever. Best podcast." Well, thank you there, Nickname431. I appreciate that. However, I would like to say that in order for me to be named the best host ever, it's probably important that you subscribe to more than one podcast. Anyway, I thought I would share that little review because, hey, I like to share iTunes reviews. And if you remember, last episode was not so flattering thanks to Sidru. But hey, I'm still nice and I'm still really, really, really creepy. So there's that. And I'm still laughing at my jokes. How you like that, Sidru? All right. Let me give you a quick update on the job. It's hammering me. How's that for you? Okay. Well, anyway, let's move on. Hey, let's first touch with the Truck Boss Show swag. You remember I was giving some away last time, or well, I wasn't. The Truck Boss Show was. And I just said first person to email me wins. Well, guess what? I didn't receive an email for like a whole month. And I guess the reasoning behind this is people are thinking, well, first person, I'm not the first person to listen to the podcast, so somebody's probably already won it. Well, guess what? Nobody won it for a whole month. Finally, Hector Garcia wrote in and said, hey, I'll take that swag. And hey, he's a new listener, so that's great. So I talked to the Truck Boss Show people over there, and they said they'll be getting it right out to him. So again, thanks, Hector, for listening to the show. Congratulations on winning the swag, and thanks to Truck Boss for doing it. If you have not heard of the Truck Boss Show, go check them out on YouTube or Facebook. Just search for Truck Boss Show. Good stuff over there. All right, got a little public announcement for you here. Were you aware that the National Truck Driver Appreciation Week is coming up pretty quick? Yep. September 9th through the 15th. That's when that is. And as usual, Pilot Flying J is doing something special all month in September for us drivers. You can get a free drink every single day. All you have to do is download the app. It's called the My Pilot app. Just look in your app store where you normally get your apps on your phone. Download that, and they have some offers in there. You just have to save them to your phone just by tapping a button. And then when you go in to get your drink, they will just scan your phone and you're out of there with some free stuff. Pretty cool. They're doing that all month long. Also, in anticipation of the brake safety check, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit later on, that is September 15th and 21st. And Pilot Flying J is offering free mid-trip inspections all month. So in order to be prepared for that safety blitz, you might want to take advantage of that offer. Again, I believe you need to save that in your phone so they can scan it, and then you can go out and find the mechanic and get that done. Or if they have a shop there on site, obviously. Also within the app, you can save an offer that'll earn free showers for the whole month of September using the shower power thing. And you get that on gallon 1 of your fuel purchase in September. So the first gallon you purchase in September, you're going to get free showers all month long. That's pretty cool. And that's a shower a day. That's what the shower power thing is. Anyway, so thanks to my pilot, Flying J, for offering this to us drivers. It's always cool to get free stuff. All right, before we get on with the news, let's do a little follow-up. You remember a story a while back, actually a series of stories where I was talking about some states in the Midwest were getting together to work on their parking situation, where they were going to be like reporting on electronic signs out on the road, like how many spots were available in the rest areas and stuff like that. Well, I've been seeing some evidence of that, but I have to admit, I was really tired the other night coming through Indiana. Went all the way through Indianapolis, and man, I was about to fall asleep. It was probably the worst I've been in quite a while. And I came upon a rest area, and it said there are 20 spots available, and I thought, awesome, man, that's great. They're doing this. And I pull in there. There's actually only about 2. So I don't know if it's just not accurate, or maybe if they're counting spots to be like out on the exit ramps, which officially those aren't spots. So I don't know if they're counting those or not, but just a little heads up that just because one of these signs says it's got 20 spots, there may not be 20 spots inside. Anyway, that's just been my experience with it. All right, let's get on with the news. All right, well, it wouldn't be a Trucker Dump podcast if we didn't start out with some recalls, right? Today is no different. Let's go over to overdriveonline.com. Check out this article. Apparently 2 recalls announced recently by Volvo trucks, including more than 25,000 trucks. On one of the recalls, well, boy, it's almost all of them, 24,848 of their trucks. This is something wrong with a T-bolt clasp on the transmission auxiliary air tank trap. If it gets over tightened, it can cause the strap to deform and just basically the tank drop to the ground, and that's not good. So you should probably get that fixed. Volvo will be notifying all owners or the fleets, whatever trucks are affected by this, and they will replace that strap for free. So you probably don't need to worry about that. Although if you want to look this up and see if your truck is affected by that, you can follow the link in the show notes and check that out. The other recall, 235 trucks, model year 2018 through 2020, Volvo VAH, VHD, VNL, and VNR models. So sounds like most of them. And this is a fuse in the transmission circuit could blow, preventing the transmission from shifting. And that would be a real bummer, wouldn't it? So again, they will notify you if you have the problem, or if you want to know immediately, just get here and click on the link in the show notes. And I would remind you that the show notes, what I mean by the show notes is you can either look in your app. If your app supports it, you will be seeing some pictures of stuff pop up. You will see clickable links that will take you right to this article right on your phone. Or if you're on the web, you can just go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD139. That's the episode that we're dealing with right now. And you will see all these links towards the bottom of the blog post. Now, the blog post is really long, so you just keep on scrolling. And in about 10 days, you'll hit the bottom of the blog post and you'll be able to check out these links. Oh, and hey, if you haven't gone over and checked out the new website, I got a lot of the bugs worked out. There's still some, but go over and check that out, abouttruckdriving.com. Tell me what you think of the new color scheme and the new layout and everything like that. I think it looks a lot better than it used to. Anyway, just my opinion. And of course, there's never just one recall, right? Well, here's another article in overdriveonline.com, a link in the show notes. Just a certain number of Freightliner Cascadias are having a brake airline issue. According to them, it's 183 of them, just 183 trucks. That's not too bad. 2019, 2020 Freightliner Cascadias. They got looks like some kind of special suspension on here. So you're probably not affected by this, but hey, if you want to know, check out the link in the show notes. Basically what's happening is, it says the brake airlines they might be damaged due to inadequate clearance between the ride height control valve and the airlines, and that could reduce brake effectiveness. And since brakes are important, you might want to get that checked out. Check out the link in the show notes. And we're done with recalls. Woohoo! But hey, speaking of brakes, you remember what we were talking about earlier when I was talking about the Pilot app? Yep. The Commercial Vehicles Safety Alliance's annual Brake Safety Week is scheduled for September 15th through 21st. That's a focus on brake hoses and tubing. They're going to be looking to make sure the hoses are properly attached, they're undamaged, no leaks, and appropriately flexible, whatever that means. Appropriately flexible. Great. Something more for the DOT to, it's up to their discretion whether it's appropriately flexible or not. Fabulous. Just what we need. Anyway, apparently last year they had 35,000 inspections and they placed nearly 5,000 vehicles out of service due to brake problems. So don't be one of those people. Head on over, take advantage of that My Pilot app thing and get your truck inspected. All right, next up, let's point you to an article on thetruckersreport.com. Hey, what do you know? I said that right for a change of pace. FMCSA proposes removing another CDL testing regulation. Boy, that sounds safe, doesn't it? Well, actually, this one's not all that bad. If you remember last episode, maybe it was the episode before, we were talking about how the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration was deciding to change some rules on testing for new CDL holders. And basically what they were wanting to do was let the schools, instead of going to a third party outside testing facility, they were just wanting to have the people who trained the students to actually give them the test too. And as I said before, that sounds like it's just opening up a whole ball of wax for fraud to me. But hey, what do I know? Well, this next one, it doesn't actually sound too bad. Basically what it wants to do is, like right now, if you need to get your CDL renewed or whatever, you always have to go back to your home state. And sometimes that's not all that convenient, especially, a lot of us don't keep an eye on that sort of thing. We probably should, but we don't. And sometimes our companies warn us at the last second that, hey, your license is about to expire. Now you're rushing to get back home, because you cannot drive that vehicle and your company will not let you drive that vehicle. I mean, you could get 50 miles from your home state, and if, it expires on that day, they're going to tell you to take a cab the rest of the way or something. Seriously, you cannot drive a big vehicle like this without a proper license. So anyway, this new proposed rule, it's not in effect yet, but what they want to do is say that you can just go and renew that license in any state. Now, the thing I'm unclear on here is whether you would still, say I'm from Missouri, I have a Missouri license, and if I'm in Pennsylvania and I stop in to get my license there, I'm assuming I'm not going to hold a Pennsylvania license, but that it will still register towards Missouri. But I don't know that. I have not been able to verify that. So if anybody knows if that is the case, can't imagine it wouldn't be. But if anybody knows if that is actually the case, please write in and tell me. That email address is truckerdump@gmail.com. Anyway, check out the link in the show notes to this story if you got more questions about that. Okay, this next story is on overdriveonline.com. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I did want to bring it to your attention. FMCSA begins to explore harassment of female and minority truckers. Apparently, the FMCSA is planning a study, so they just have to submit this paperwork saying that they're going to do it. And what they're going to do is they're going to get a maximum of 440 female truckers and 440 male minority truckers, and they're going to do an online survey basically, and they're going to compensate them $25 to do it, I guess. Basically what they're trying to do is figure out if there are a lot of harassment issues. And I guess this has been brought to light because there has been some reports of it. Of course, we all know it goes on in the industry because we're out here. Basically, I don't want to get into this too deep, but drivers, we just need to watch ourselves out here, treat women with respect, which you should be doing anyway. And just because a person is a minority does not mean that you need to treat them with any less respect than you would anybody else. Okay. There's also, been some issues with the I can't even say it. I never can remember. There's too many letters. LBGTQXYZ. I don't know, but there's also been some harassment on them, I guess. So, it wouldn't surprise me if they're included in this eventually. So again, I would just like to point out to everyone that just because you may not believe the way some people do, or you don't agree with their lifestyle or where they're from or whatever, does not mean that you are, that's okay for you to just belittle them or harass them or whatever, because it's not. And for those Christians out there who are listening to this podcast right now, if you are a Christian, the Bible does not say to do that. We're supposed to love all people, might not agree with them, might not agree with the things they do, but we are required to love people, treat them with respect. So I'll drop it at that. Let's say we stay on overdriveonline.com. This next story is actually a series of 3 stories. The first one kind of sums it up, though. The mandates last roundup. Yeehaw! The AOBRD to ELD shift. And these 3 articles are all about the changes. As you all know, back in December of 2017, everyone had to be on e-logs, and they gave a 2-year grace period to all of those companies who are on AOBRDs, which basically allowed lots of editing on the logs and things like that. Lots of different changes. Like, for instance, you go as fast as you want. The companies could set different parameters, like, for instance, you could go 20 mile an hour before it would kick onto the drive line, or they could set it like, you can go up to 2 miles before it would kick you on the drive line or something like that. There was a lot more flexibility in those, but the ELDs are getting rid of that. And that 2-year grace period is up this December. Now, I imagine you probably have already heard about this and know about it. I'll just hit the highlights basically for you. Basically, the ELDs are going to mean that you cannot go over 5 mile an hour without automatically switching to the drive line. Now, that means when you're at a shipper in the middle of the night and you need to put the truck in the dock, you are either going to have to drive all the way around to the far side of the building where your dock is at less than 5 mile an hour, hoping you don't kick over to the drive line and ruin your 10-hour break, or you can use what's called a yard move. This is a new thing with the ELDs, and this yard move is an on-duty status, but supposedly the line will be a different color, or it will be dotted or dashed or something like that on the e-log, where the DOT officers will see that and know that on-duty stuff was not actually driving. It was on, at a customer facility or on a company terminal or something like that. The thing that is not clear to me, and I actually have an email into the DOT trying to figure this out, but okay, the line is a different color on your e-log. Great. But does that mean that it actually won't interrupt a 10-hour break? I mean, this is an on-duty, and on-duty has always broken up a 10-hour break in the past. So I have seen nowhere online that it says that it won't. But I can't imagine what's the purpose of a yard move if it is going to break up a 10-hour break, because say you're into 5 hours into a 10-hour break, and then, this yard move puts you, it screws it all up, and now you have to take 15 hours to get a full break in. It's just not good. So anyway, that's left to be seen. I have not heard anything about that. If you know what's going on here and you can show me, I mean, I want to see actual evidence, like on a website or something like that, an official website, not somebody's opinion, but an official website. If you've got that kind of information, shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. I'd love to hear it. Now, here's another thing I learned from this article. Personal conveyance. We all know what that is. Well, did you know that it's only good for a 10-mile radius from where you started? I don't think I've seen anything about that. And, they've been talking about that for the last few months about, how we left flexibility. We left that rule vague so you could use it, with more flexibility. And not once did they say anything about a 10-mile radius. And for those of you not good at geometry, a 10-mile radius means, 10 miles in any direction from, where you started. So that doesn't really give you a whole lot of options. I mean, there are some places out in the boonies that there's no truck stop or any safe place to park within 10 miles. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do about this. But anyway, the personal conveyance is considered off duty. And, I guess that 10-mile limit would keep people from like abusing it, driving home and stuff like that. But for instance, my company has already said that they want us to use personal conveyance to go to the hotel if we need to bobtail. That usually doesn't happen during the week, but on, like Friday night, Saturday morning, often the hotel shuttles aren't running. So we will take our bobtail, and I can think of 2 or 3 of our terminals right off the top of my head that are more than 10 miles. So not really sure how this is going to work. It's going to be interesting. My company is actually switching over in September so they can get all the bugs worked out by December. So those are the biggest differences in an AOBRD and a ELD. At least the ones that matter to drivers. There actually is one other one, and that is that the driver has more control in the ELDs. And by control, I don't mean like you can edit more things and stuff like that, but there has been cases where, on the AOBRDs where a fleet has complete access to that thing in the background, and they could change your drive time. They could change everything, and they could do it without your knowledge. So, I know there's been instances that I've talked to drivers where they thought they were out of hours. They'd come back in the next day and they miraculously had more hours. How'd that happen? Well, supposedly that won't be able to happen with these new ELDs because anytime there's a change made on your end or the back end, you will be notified of it as the driver. It will pop up on the screen and it will say, you need to approve this or deny it. And, naturally, don't do anything illegal. So don't claim anything. Thankfully, they won't be able to, they know they won't be able to get away with that. The carriers won't be able to get away with that anymore. So hopefully they'll quit trying to pull that crap. Anyway, a link in the show notes to all 3 of these articles if you're interested. Again, that's on overdriveonline.com. Now, while we're talking about ELDs, I found a really good resource and you're never going to believe where it is. The FMCSA website. Yes, I know it's hard to believe that a government organization could be helpful in any way possible. But hey, this website is actually pretty good. They have a frequently asked questions, an FAQ, link in the show notes, and it's on the hours of service and the ELDs. And there is a lot of good information. I was going through there and verifying a lot of things that I thought and just anything I thought was interesting. There'd be a question in there and I thought, hey, I never thought about that before. I'd look it up and go, interesting. So, you might want to check that out sometime when you're really, 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 really bored. All right. Next story. Speaking of boring, let's cover some trucking law. No, seriously. These have been really good. I think I mentioned this before. Overdriveonline.com is doing some trucking law segments where they're just taking a different topic, and they've got a couple of really good ones this month that I've seen. The first article is called Drug and Alcohol Regs Are Tighter Than Most Know. Now, keep in mind, this is done by an attorney. His name is Paul Taylor, and he works he's a partner at the Truckers Justice Center. So he knows a thing or two about trucking. So you may think you were right about a lot of this stuff, but boy, I learned some new things. Okay, the first one I want to mention is resting in the sleeper berth after using alcohol. Now, it's always been my understanding that, say you come off the road, 11 hours of driving, you're tired, You go over to the pub across the street, you have 3 or 12 beers, and you're feeling a little sleepy. So you stumble back over to your truck, you get in the truck, you go to sleep, everything's fine, right? Well, that's what I thought, as long as you didn't have the keys in the ignition. But here's the thing. That is not right. Mr. Taylor here says this is one of the biggest catches that they can get you on. What they say is that you can't have alcohol in your system if you have physical control of a commercial motor vehicle, meaning you have immediate access to the keys and your truck is nearby. And this even applies while you're taking a 34-hour restart. So, that's interesting. He points out that the best course of action is to consume no alcohol on the road whatsoever, which is kind of how I do it, unless you're in a motel room. And he even goes as far as to say, even if you're at home, put your truck keys like in another room than a room you're drinking in, which I think is a little ridiculous, but hey, what do I know? And another thing I learned out of this article was that the limit for truck drivers is lower than I thought. I had always heard that for the average person, the blood alcohol level could be 0.08. And for truck drivers, it was 0.04. Well, this article actually says it's 0.02. I didn't know that. And quite honestly, that's shocking because that is that's basically one beer or one mixed drink for a 150-pound dude. So, man, oh man. I mean, anyway, just be careful if you're going to drink out on the road. Know this can happen to you. I very seriously doubt anybody is going to come and, investigate you. But hey, if you are stumbling across the street from that pub and somebody sees you jump into a truck, they might be calling the fuzz on you and you might be getting a visit. And if that happens, you actually could be in big trouble. So just pointing that out to you. Now, another one I think a lot of you know about is that you were required to go to the test site immediately. That doesn't mean you can, hang out and go eat somewhere. As soon as your company informs you that you're going for a random testing of any kind, you have to report to it immediately. So, they can't expect you, if you've got work on the dock or something like that, they need to tell you afterwards, or they need to be prepared for you to just not do that dock work and go directly to the testing station. I think most of us probably know that one. Here's one that really shocked me. Now, not for alcohol, but for drug testing. Now, I did not know this, but as truck drivers, we are subject to random controlled testing even when we're off duty, and that includes while we're at home or vacation. And keep in mind, this is not alcohol, this is just for drugs, but still, I mean, good Lord. He suggests if you don't want to have to do that, if you don't want your company calling you up at home and trying to get you to go in for a drug test, while you're home or while you're on vacation, just don't answer the phone when they call. Which, hey, I know a lot of drivers do anyway. They just won't answer any call because they don't want their companies trying to force them back out on the road or, bugging them about coming out early or something like that. So anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. I had no idea they could do that to you. And I'm not going to go into the rest of them. You can read the article if you're interested, but, I'll hit on a couple real quick. Of course, you can't use any other person's medication, which honestly you shouldn't be doing anyway. But if you get caught with a controlled substance in your system, prescription drugs or whatever, you better have a prescription for that. If you can't prove it, they're going to send you up the river. And also, of course, you cannot use marijuana. Even if your state allows it and you get nailed, that is a federal law. It says state laws do not overrule or void controlled substance testing according to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. So, pot stays in your system for 30 days. So I would advise just not smoking pot. But hey, if you're going to do it, better hope you don't get a random drug screen, because if you remember right, we've got that clearinghouse coming up that's starting in October, I believe. That is going to be a list of everything you as the trucker has done according to like random drug screens and piss tests and all that stuff. And it's going to be in there. And if you've ever refused a test, things like that. And it's going to be real hard for you to get a job starting in 2020. Starting in 2020, every trucking company is going to have to hit that database. And looks like, according to an article I read, they're going to have to pay $1.25 to the FMCSA to check every single person out before they hire them. So, hey, nice money making scheme there. Anyway, there's some other ones listed in this article, but I will not go into it. But hey, I will go into another article about, and it's another trucking law one, and it's about sleep apnea. Now, this one's got some more technical information about the requirements around getting a sleep apnea test and things like that. So, again, I think we've covered CPAP a lot, CPAP machines and stuff like that a lot on Trucker Dump. And so I'm just going to let you go to the website here. This is a pretty good article by Alexander E. Underwood. He's a doctor, so he deals with all this kind of stuff. So, some interesting information on sleep apnea. And by the way, I would just like to say that I have a fair amount of guys on the fleet that I'm working with now who have sleep apnea machines. And I know for a fact that Shannon Holden, who was the guy we interviewed last episode for, his job, he says he has a CPAP machine and he loves it. And, that's the story I keep getting from every driver who has this CPAP machine is it takes a long time to get used to, but once you've got it, oh man, they love them, So anyway, if you're scared about this sleep apnea test or whatever, maybe you shouldn't be, go in, get the test. And, if you're put on a CPAP machine, hey, you just might not be tired all the time. And that'd be awesome. It'd be awesome for all of us because I don't want to die because you wreck into me. All right, let's move on. All right, this next story I am not interested in at all, but I am interested to hear what you have to say about it. This one says, bucking court rulings, the DOL, that's Department of Labor, argues drivers aren't owed sleeper berth pay. Now, I'm not sure if I even knew this was an issue, but I guess some companies have been suing, trying to say, like Swift and Pam have been trying to say that they shouldn't have to pay their drivers for sleeping. Now, I don't know. Part of me thinks if you're out on the road, you should be getting paid. But I also think, that's kind of unreasonable, because you're just sleeping. I mean, you'd be doing the same thing at home, right? So anyway, I guess there was a federal court ruling saying that drivers should be paid for the sleeper berth time. Then it got overruled, and there's just some mess going on there. And I am just curious to hear what you guys think about that. Do you think drivers should be paid? I know Walmart pays their drivers a set amount for a 10-hour sleeper berth. You think every company should be paying that? Anyway, I guess our opinions really don't matter because once these court cases are all settled, it'll either be that we do not get pay for sleeper berth time, which is typical and has been going on for many, many, many years, or we'll all be blessed and they will have to start paying us for it. I don't expect the latter. I'd expect the former. Anyway, link in the show notes of this, overdriveonline.com. And for your opinion, I would like for you to email me at truckerdump@gmail.com. Tell me what you think. All right, here is yet another story that I don't really care about, but some of you might because you do factoring. Some of you probably don't even know what factoring is. Quite honestly, I didn't think I knew what factoring was until about a year ago. Basically, from the way I understand it, factoring is just a company that will basically front you the money that you're owed from a company. So for owner operators, if you get a load through a broker and they're going to take, 30 days to pay or something like that, this company will kind of front you that money and then you pay it back with, of course, some interest rates. And apparently there's been some shady stuff going on with, extra fees and late payments and stuff like that, So again, just check out if you're factoring with the company, make sure they are reputable. Make sure you check out reviews for them or maybe get advice from another trucker, somebody who's been doing it for a really long time and they've had good luck with their company. This article is from overdriveonline.com, and they are talking to the president of TBS Factoring Service. So I'm guessing if Overdrive approves of them, that, hey, you can probably trust them too, especially since they're pointing out the bad people. So if this factoring stuff factors into your life, yes, that was a very cheesy joke. That's how I roll. Check out the link in the show notes to this. All right, we got a few more here. Again, overdriveonline.com. Man, we are hitting them hard this time. This one's called One Driver, Two Trucks. Peloton, am I saying that right? I don't know. Aims for level 4 platooning platform. Boy, these platooning things just will not go away. If you are unfamiliar with the term platooning, this means that two trucks are really close together and they are, one following the other, and they are connected electronically. Basically, the lead driver controls the back vehicle too. Now, apparently in level 1 platooning, there is a driver in the front vehicle doing everything as normal, and there is another vehicle right behind it that is following, and it does require another driver behind it. He is required to steer, he or she, I should say. Sorry about that, ladies. They are required to steer, but they are not required to touch the pedals or anything like that. That's being controlled by the guy up front. Now, level 4 platooning takes away that back driver completely. So they will be doing the steering and everything. Now, I like the spin they put on it here. The CEO of the company says, quote, "We see the drivers as the world's best sensors, and we are leveraging this to enable today's drivers to be more productive through automated following platoons." Close quote. So, okay. So what he's saying is, man, you truck drivers are awesome. You've got better sensors than any computer can have. So we're going to put a guy in the front, and then there's going to be no guy in that other truck. Okay, great. Way more efficient for the companies. Put a trucker out of a job. Well, that's kind of what we can expect from automation, I guess. But anyway, I don't know. I am confused with this whole platooning thing because, well, wasn't it Daimler who said just recently that they did a lot of testing on this and they saw that the fuel savings for this was so low that it was not worth pursuing, and they just dropped it altogether? Well, apparently Peloton is still pursuing it, and we'll see how it goes. Quite honestly, it's like one truck following really closely to another one. Last I think I heard was like about 30 feet away from the other bumper, from the back bumper on the lead truck. And that is really close. And there are going to be a lot of people in the public who are like, what the heck is going on here? This ain't cool. So anyway, I don't know. A lot more stories about trucks going down the road without drivers in them nowadays, but well, it's around the corner, but I think it's way around. I mean, it's not around a corner like a block away. It's around a corner like 20 miles away. That's just my opinion. We'll see. I just think we have a long way to go on that. But anyway, platooning, please just go away. Please. All right. Time to issue a warning from the truckersreport.com. Apparently, Minnesota State Police are now ticketing slow drivers for being out in the left-hand lane. I don't know how I feel about this one. I mean, we don't want people to be out in the left-hand lane, but there are times when you need to get around somebody, and it's just going to take you a little while. So I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Now, thankfully, I'm in such a slow truck now that it doesn't ever affect me because everybody just blows by me like I'm standing still. So anyway, just beware if you're in Minnesota. They could always bust you for it, like, pull you over and scold you, I guess, but they couldn't issue tickets, and now they can do so. Apparently it's not a huge fine, but the ticket is worth $50, and you'll also have to pay $75 in court fees. So anyway, they're just trying to keep traffic flowing, and I get it. Just not sure how I feel about it. Let me know what you think about it. truckerdump@gmail.com. Well, we've been giving overdriveonline.com a workout, so let's stick with the Truckers Report for this one. sure you've heard about this story. All of us has. It's been happening way too often lately. You know, it started with Aero Trucking back in 2009, just a few days before Christmas when they shut down the company and stranded drivers everywhere. Just recently it happened with LME where they stranded 400 some drivers, and then Falcon did it with 585 drivers just recently. And now we got another one, HVH Transportation, which, if memory serves, is out of Denver. I think they're out of Denver. Anyway, they're saying that, you know, of course, they're trying to blame it on the banks, saying that, the banks and the insurance companies, which, hey, if you're going to blame someone, those are two people to blame for sure. But apparently they're saying that they ran out of money, because of the insurance premiums were too high. And then the bank froze the assets, and as soon as the fuel card operators found out, they froze everything. And so drivers were finding out that the company was going under simply because they couldn't get fuel out on the road. This has happened a lot, and man, it just sucks. I just hope they do better than the last few companies in getting their drivers back home again. Man, what a mess. I hope you are not a part of this. Okay, since that last story really sucked, let's end with something on a high note. Found this on the truckersreport.com. You know, everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame, right? Well, this is a casting call for 2 different trucking shows. Now, I would like to point out that there is not a deadline in this article, so I don't know if they are still looking. This article, boy, it doesn't even have a date on it. Looks like somewhere around August 9th. That was the first comment left on it anyway. Anyway, here's what's going on. The creators of the popular show Ice Road Truckers, they're going to make a new show. It looks like it's going to be like a competition type thing. It says they're looking for drivers with years of experience who can drive your rig around the tightest corners. So if you're a really good driver and you want to be on a major cable network at some point, you can email them. It's kind of a messed up email, so I'll just put it in the show notes. Or again, you can go to abacktruckdriving.com, search for Trucker Dump 139, and you'll see the links at the very bottom. The second casting call, it looks more like it's going to be a traditional Ice Road Truckers type thing, you know, where they follow you through the course of your day and stuff like that. The producers say they're looking for family-owned businesses who have experience shipping large and obscure items over dynamic terrain. So, looks like they're looking for oversized type stuff that are getting some sticky situations. Anyway, this email is a little bit easier, but I will also include it in the show notes. This one is casting@tfcasting.com. All right, and we're done with the news. Whew, boy, that took a while. Thanks for sticking with me. If you're a truck driver that likes your creature comforts, look no further than the V&L series from Volvo. You can learn more at volvotrucks.us. I totally get it. I've driven over the road for 22 years, and I would love to have a Volvo. It is so much nicer than anything I ever drove. They really thought about the driver when they laid out the interior of this cab. For instance, did you know Volvo is the first to offer a fully integrated reclining bunk in a sleeper? Yep, it's true. It's fully adjustable. Like the website said, it's just like putting your favorite easy chair in the cab. And once you're there, there's a really handy-dandy little swivel tray that comes off the back wall of the cab. It just swivels right into place, right, so that you can, watch your iPad or eat or type or whatever you want to do there. It's really great. Also, from that seating position, right beside you is the control panel, which can be used to lock the doors. You can adjust the heating or cooling. You can, set the stereo level. You can even close all the shades simultaneously. How cool is that? And about those window shades, oh man, these things slide up and slide down really easily. There's no Velcro to worry about or no snaps because we know those things don't work and they're a pain in the butt. And you're going to want to close those shades because when it's time to sleep, it's time to sleep. And you are not going to find a more comfortable mattress than the one that's in the Volvo V&L series. It's thick and plush, and I think it actually might be made of unicorn hair. I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to check with Volvo and get back to you on that. Another great feature is the telescoping ladder. This thing folds up and stores behind one of the cabinets when you're not using it. When you need it, just pull it out, pop it down. Now you don't have to be a gymnast to get on the top bunk. How awesome is that? Especially for you truckers who, how should we say it, aren't very spry anymore. Let's put it that way. Just everything in this cab is laid out perfectly for the driver. A nice spot for a microwave, cabinets in the perfect position, cup holders. Everything's just laid out perfectly. And if you don't believe me, hey, I'm trustworthy. Head on over to volvotrucks.us and check it out for yourself. Because as the website says, it's not just a workspace, it's a space that works. How clever is that? So again, check out that website at volvotrucks.us. And thanks again to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Hey, Nick Mack is back with another Trucker Grub review. What did he do last time? Oh, yeah, it was some log cabin place over by the Loretta Lynn restaurant. It wasn't the Loretta Lynn place. It was someplace near there that was really good. So I will have to check that. I still have to check that out sometime. I do get to Tennessee, so hey, I could still do that. But this time, well, what are we going to hit? I think it's something Southern. Take it away, Nick.
Hello, Todd. Hello, fellow trucker dumpers. This is Nick Mack, and I have a great trucker's grub for everyone. Now, this is coming from, the recommendation was made from a good friend of mine, the guy who trained me, Ricardo. He's a retired Navy. 22 years he was in the Navy, and he was on a sub, and he was the cook. And you know, when they're on a sub in the Navy and they're underwater for a couple months at a time, the only thing that keeps those guys alive are good food, and you have to feed them well so they won't revolt and there won't be chaos. So this is a cook who knows what good food is, because he had to keep the whole Navy crew on the sub happy with great food for months and months on end out in the submarine. Now, I know a couple of the guys had told me to stay away from the Tiger truck stop. And they had told me, if you see a Tiger truck stop, don't stop. It was the first time I was going through Louisiana, and I had to take a leak. And I pulled into the Tiger truck stop thinking it can't be that bad. The truck stop area was pretty bad. The bathroom was in bad shape, and it was a tiny convenience store, and the coffee area was small, and it wasn't even good coffee. And I was like, now I know why they told me never to stop here, because the place is kind of run down, and it was pretty scary and pretty shady.
Yes, it is.
Well, Ricardo told me recently, because I was going through there again, that I have to stop at the Tiger Cafe. It's I-10 exit 139, the Tiger Cafe. And I told him my story about the truck stop, and he goes, well, the truck stop, that's a different part, and that is pretty nasty over there. You know, and the Tiger Cafe, you know, the tables are a little sticky, like they're not that clean, and the servers might have a meth problem, or they might have had a meth problem. But that aside, you got to go, because they have the best jambalaya and the best boudin balls there are. And he's absolutely right. The jambalaya is out of this world, and those are some dang good boudin balls. So I'm telling you, listen to the retired Navy cook of 22 years, Ricardo. Stop at the Tiger Cafe at exit I-39 off of I-10.
Man, Nick is pumped about that food, is he not? Not that enthusiastic about the meth heads, though. No, seriously. Well, I would say yummy, but I'm not convinced that's yummy, because, hey, I don't like Cajun food. I know. I probably just lost some listeners there, but I just don't like spicy food. And I think jambalaya and boudin balls, or however you pronounce it, are pretty spicy. So anyway, if you are interested in that kind of stuff and that Cajun food, check that out. And, I think another slight against the Tiger truck stop down there, of course, is the Tiger. Everybody loves Tigers, right? They're really cool, but it is really kind of sad to see him in his, his cage down there. Not much to do, not much interaction. It's just really kind of a sad situation. I think a lot of people don't want to support that. But honestly, I thought I had heard that Tiger passed away. I am not sure about that, but I'd be curious to know if any of you have been down there recently and know if they still have tigers on site. But like Nick said, the convenience store is pretty shady. The parking lot's pretty bad. There's just not a lot there, but apparently that Tiger Cafe or whatever it's called is pretty good back there. So check it out. And thanks, Nick, for sending this in. I appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the main topic before my voice craps out on me. Obviously, you've already heard what this is about, understanding the 2019 proposed hours of service changes. I'm going to explain all this stuff in here and how this works and how you need to look at these things so then you can make your own decision and go and, submit your comments to the FMCSA. They're accepting. Anyway, we'll get into that. But before we get into it, I would like to point out two articles. One is on overdriveonline.com. The other is on thetruckersreport.com. And the Truckers Report has your comprehensive guide to the proposed hours of service reform rules. So this is really long because that's how I roll with, lots of examples and things like that. And this is just a straightforward guide. So you might want to, earmark this on your phone or in your bookmarks on your computer or whatever. So you have easy access to this when some driver tries to tell you the way things are going to be and that's not right. So you can pull this up and prove it to them. And also the overdriveonline.com had a story called As Industry Groups Laud FMCSA's Hours Proposal, Truckers Offer Mixed Reactions. And it just kind of goes through kind of the same things I was thinking. Actually, pretty much every article I've seen online pretty much agrees with everything I've said. And I hope it doesn't come off like I'm copying it because I'm coming out later with it, but I came to these conclusions all myself before I actually read a lot of these articles. But anyway, there'll be links to the show notes in here. So let's get on with this. This one, again, is called Understanding the 2019 Proposed Hours of Service Changes. Heck yeah! The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, has finally proposed the new hours of service changes. All I can say about that is it's about friggin' time. I mean, seriously, they've been promising to make things happen quicker this time around, but it sure doesn't seem like it. Now, I suppose we really shouldn't complain too much about all the wait. After all, it's only been about a year since the FMCSA first asked for public comments on the current hours of service. I mean, by government standards, this is flash-like supersonic speed here. In reality, we truckers should probably be grateful that they're proposing changes at all. If you're looking at it from the outside, everything was running smoothly. But apparently, and I know this is going to surprise you as much as it did me, our FMCSA overlords were actually listening to all us complaining truck drivers. Who knew? So, what were all of us truckers complaining about? I think U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao summed it up nicely when she said, quote, "This proposed rule seeks to enhance safety by giving America's commercial drivers more flexibility while maintaining the safety limits on driving time," end quote. And just as before, the FMCSA Administrator, Ray Martinez, is asking for public comments until October 7th, 2019. And there'll be a link in the show notes to where you can make your public comments. Again, flexibility is the key word they've used here. So let's say we get on with all the gory details of these proposed hours of service changes. There are 5 changes, so let's start with the easy ones and work our way up. The first one is the short haul exemption. The first thing to know is that driving under the current short haul rules, you must start your driving and return to the same facility every day within 12 hours and not drive beyond a 100 air mile radius of that facility. Now, honestly, I was sort of surprised when I saw this rule. That's because fellow Trucker Dump Slack member and friend Trevor, he's also known as Kool-Aid in Slack, great name. He has a local job, and I know for a fact that he can work up to 14 hours a day. So what's up with that? Well, upon further research, I discovered that the 12-hour workday relates to commercial driver's license holders who operate within 100 miles of their home terminal and who also do not run logbooks, which is yet another perk of the short haul exception. And now it all makes sense again, since I know Trevor runs a logbook. At least I think I've got all this right. If you know better, email me at truckerdump@gmail.com and straighten me out. Now, the new short haul exception, and I always said exemption when it's actually the short haul exception. Anyway, it would increase the distance to 150 air mile radius instead of 100, and it would also increase the drive time from 12 to 14 hours. Now, it's important to keep in mind that you still can't drive more than 11 hours per day. The extra 2 hours is designed to let you drive your full 11 hours if you're delayed by traffic, weather, loading or unloading, mechanical breakdown, or whatever. Now, if you're seeing both the good and bad in this new rule, you're not alone. Stick around until the end and we'll be discussing these concerns. But for now, let's keep this big rig a-rolling. The second proposed hours of service change is adverse driving conditions. Now, I thought this one was pretty straightforward, but as the evil overlord often tells me, you're wrong. Sadly, she's often right. Anyway, I think I've got this figured out. It's a subtle change, but it's an important one if you find yourself in adverse driving conditions. First, let's define the term adverse weather conditions. According to Part 395.2, wow, look at me getting all technical. The FMCSA website defines it as, open quote, snow, sleet, fog, other adverse weather conditions, a highway covered with snow or ice, or unusual road and traffic conditions, none of which were apparent on the basis of information known to the person dispatching the run at the time it was begun, end quote. And there's a link to that if you're interested in seeing the actual quote there. So, technically, if you found out about icy roads before you left the shipper and yet you still decided to hit the road knowing you could claim the adverse driving conditions exception, you'd be wrong. Now, how anyone could prove you knew before you left without obtaining a warrant for your internet browsing history, that's a different story. So now that we've got that settled, let's move on to the current rule, which states that you may extend your driving time up to 2 hours due to adverse driving conditions, but you cannot drive past your 14 hours, or 15 hours for passenger carrying vehicles. The subtle difference here in the proposed new rule is that the 2 hours of extra allowable drive time does extend your 14 hours, or 15 hours for passenger carrying vehicles again. All right, let's move on to an example. Under the current rule, let's say you're 13 hours into your workday and you've driven 10 hours so far. You've got 1 hour left to drive on your 11 and 1 hour left on your 14 to find a good parking spot for the night. Perfect. But then you encounter adverse driving conditions, also known as an icy road that's greasier than Danny Zuko's elephant trunk. You can drive 2 more hours now because of the weather, right? Wrong. 2 more hours would put you 1 hour over your allowed 14. That's the difference in the current rule and the new proposed rule. Under the new rule, you would be able to drive the 2 more hours because your 14-hour rule is extended also. Nice. So, is that clear as mud now? I know it does get a little confusing with all these numbers, but try to follow along. And remember, you can always go to abouttruckdriving.com, search for TD139, and follow along in the text version. All right, let's move on to the proposed hours of service change number 3, which is the 30-minute break, the one that we all hate. All right, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but as I reported on the last Trucker Dump podcast, the stupid 30-minute break is here to stay. I'm still not sure why they're so adamant about keeping it, but whatever. It is what it is. At least they're trying to alter it a bit to give us some more flexibility. All right, we've got another subtlety here. The current rule states that you need to take a stupid 30-minute break, off-duty, or sleeper berth if more than 8 hours has passed since your last off-duty or sleeper berth break of at least 30 minutes. Now, obviously, I've added the word stupid there, but I can't bring myself to say 30-minute break without adding stupid to it. So there we go. As most drivers know, this rule is especially frustrating when you're almost to the spot where you'll be shut down for 10 hours. But since it's been 8 hours since your last stupid 30-minute break, or longer, you now have to find a spot to park while you stare out the window for 30 stupid minutes. Please tell me you aren't blocking a fuel bay, by the way. I put a link in the show notes to the podcast called The Fuel Bay Golden Rule. Please check it out so you aren't that person. Ugh. Now, as I've said about a quadrillion times, hey, props to Furiosa and the Trucker Dump Slack group for that word, I can't recall one single instance where a stupid 30-minute break didn't make me more tired instead of energizing me. Seriously, if you don't believe me, just go back and read my Twitter feed for the last few years. I've included a link to my Twitter account, or you can just search for me over there. I'm Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Anywho, the proposed new rule only has a slight modification. You'll still have to take a break if it's been more than 8 hours since your last one, but now the slightly less stupid 30-minute break can be taken using any duty status other than driving. While this doesn't fix the idiocy of the rule in general, it should help. After all, the purpose of the stupid rule is to keep us from driving more than 8 hours straight, right? Then why in the name of John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt did the stupid 30-minute break always have to be logged as off-duty or sleeper berth? Am I driving while I'm fueling? No. Am I driving while I'm counting freight on a customer dock? Nope. Am I driving while I'm standing in line to get a delicious steak chalupa at Taco Hell? Well, if I am, I'm doing it wrong. The fact is, most truckers get a stupid 30-minute break in without even trying. Maybe we fuel and run into the truck stop to grab a coffee. That's going to take close to 30 minutes right there. Say 15 minutes of on-duty, not driving time, plus 15 minutes of off-duty time. As long as it's 30 continuous minutes of a combination of off-duty, sleeper berth, or on-duty not driving, then you're golden for another 8 hours. Sweet! One of the immediate benefits most of us will see is that the pre-trip inspection will no longer count towards the 8 hours. Typically, after a 15-minute pre-trip, I'll only have 7 3/4 hours to drive before I need to take the stupid 30-minute break. So, if the new rule sticks, that 8-hour countdown won't start ticking until I go onto the drive line. Woohoo! An extra 15 minutes. While it does stink worse than a teenage boy's feet that the stupid 30-minute rule still exists, it's better than it was before. Sad, because now I'm going to have to keep saying the word stupid far more often than I'd like to. Proposed hours of service change number 4, the split sleeper berth. Now, let's be clear. I'm not a fan of the split sleeper berth, but I don't think it's stupid either, unlike another rule we won't mention again. The problem is, it's just too darn confusing to do a split. Just the other day in the Trucker Dump Slack group, 2 truckers with over 50 years of combined experience were having a disagreement about how the split sleeper berth was calculated. Now, if they have a hard time with it, how the heck are new truckers supposed to understand it? To be honest, anytime I absolutely had to do an 8 and 2 split to pick up or deliver on time, I always called my safety department to get help. Hey, it's better to ask than to do it wrong and screw up. So here's the way the current split sleeper berth works. Excuse me a moment. Dear Lord, help me not to sound like a moron. Amen. All right, here we go. This is one of those times when you might want to go to abouttruckdriving.com, search for Trucker Dump 139, and follow along in the text version. Wow. Of course, there's a link in the show notes. Just don't read this while you're going down the road. All right. After 11 hours of driving, a trucker is required to log a continuous 10-hour rest period before they can drive again. Or they can split that into 2 breaks of 8 and 2 that total 10 hours. By the way, it doesn't matter if you take the 2-hour part of the break or the 8-hour part first. Now, under current rules, one of those 2 breaks needs to be 8 continuous hours of sleeper berth, while the other can be 2 continuous hours or more of off-duty sleeper berth or a mixture of the 2. So, for instance, You could log off duty for 30 minutes and then log in the sleeper berth for 1 hour and finish it off with 30 more minutes on the on-duty status. That would count towards that 2-hour break. Now, the 8-hour portion of that break does extend the 14-hour rule, but the 2-hour break doesn't. This can really come in handy if you're delayed at a loading dock for 8 hours. If you do a split, you haven't lost any of your driving hours. As if this weren't confusing enough as is, now let's talk about how long you can drive while using the split sleeper berth option. Okay, I've already prayed, so let's just dive right in. All right, here goes an example. Let's say you drove for 6 hours. You arrive at a shipper and it takes them 8 hours to load you. Now, normally 6 hours plus the 8 hours you waited is 14 hours. So basically, you're done for the day thanks to the 14-hour rule. But if you log that 8 hours all in the sleeper berth status, you've just started an 8 and 2 split. So, how long can you drive now? All right, this is the confusing part, always has been to me. The best way I've had this explained to me is that if you add the 2 driving sessions before and after one of the breaks, that combined total cannot exceed the 11 hours maximum. So, in this example, you've driven 6 hours. Now that you've logged 8 hours in the sleeper berth, you now have up to 5 more hours to drive. That's because you had 6 hours before the 8-hour break and 5 hours after the 8-hour break. The 6 and the 5 total 11. At that point, you need to take another break. So, at this point, you have 2 options. First, you could save your sanity by taking a full 10-hour break and getting back on a normal 11-hour driving, 10-hour rest period schedule. Or, if you're a complete nut job, you can take a 2-hour break, as described above, and keep going with the split. You can even run like this continuously if you've completely lost your marbles. Again, I'm only going to hassle with that if it's absolutely necessary to get the job done. Okay, so you've taken the crazy pill and you've completed a 2-hour break to keep going with the split. So how long can you drive now? Another 11 hours? Nope. That's for sane people, not you. Let's do the math. All right, let's say you drove the full 5 hours you had available on that last half of that leg we were talking about earlier. Now, in that case, you'd have another 6 hours available to drive after the 2-hour break. Remember the guideline from earlier about counting drive time on both sides of either of the split breaks? Yeah. So, 5 hours of driving before the 2-hour break plus 6 hours of driving you're getting ready to do after would total 11 hours again. So, hey, great. Now you know you're going to stay legal as long as you drive less than the 6 hours. But let's change that scenario a bit, because who doesn't want to be more confused, right? Now, let's say you only drove 3 hours instead of the full 5 hours you had available. Now, if you do the math, you drove 3 hours before the 2-hour break, which means you now have 8 hours to drive again after the break, because 3 plus 8 equals 11, right? So do you see now why I say only crazy or desperate people do the 8 and 2 split? And believe it or not, it gets even more confusing when you start figuring that the 8-hour break doesn't count toward the 14, but the 2-hour break does. But hey, we won't get into that, largely because it confuses me more than when Kate Hudson married that ugly dude from the Black Crowes. All right, now let's talk about the proposed new split sleeper berth. Thankfully, this will be a bit easier to explain. First, they want to add an option to do a 7 and 3 split to the already existing 8 and 2. Again, the longer 7-hour break would need to be logged all on the sleeper berth, and the 3 hours could be logged as any continuous combination of off-duty and sleeper berth. Thankfully, this wouldn't change our driving hours math at all. All driving hours before and after the 7-hour or the 3-hour break would still need to total 11 hours of driving or less. The second change to this rule is now both of the rest periods would extend the 14-hour clock. Remember, under the current rule, only the 8-hour break would extend it. Under the new rule, the 8, the 7, the 3, or the 2-hour breaks would extend the 14 hours. Now, honestly, I haven't used the split sleeper berth rule enough to know how the changes in this new rule will affect the way we drive. Now, I know the 7 and 3 wouldn't mean that much to me, because if I was delayed for 7 hours on the current rule, I'd just wait around until the 8-hour mark so I could count it as a legal split break. But I guess anything that extends the 14 hours is a good thing. Well, to be continued. Proposed hours of service change number 5, the last one, split duty provision. Okay, just so you weren't confused like I was when I read split duty, everyone in the trucking world has been calling this the 14-hour pause. We actually just discussed the current 14-hour rule. Basically, once you start your day, you have 14 hours to complete it. The only thing that can extend the 14 hours is an 8-hour sleeper berth break that will be used in a split sleeper berth scenario. After that 14 hours is up, you cannot drive again until you take a legal 10-hour break. However, it's important to note that you can still work after the 14 hours is up. So if it takes you 14 hours to get loaded and arrive at your delivery point, you can still do a post-trip inspection or even unload a trailer for 3 or 4 hours after the 14 is over, just as long as you don't start driving again until you get that 10-hour break. Now here's the problem with the current 14-hour rule. All right, we're going to get confusing again, so be prepared. This 14-hour rule has haunted truckers ever since it was enacted in 2003. But actually, before that, there was a 15-hour workday basically since 1938 when the hours of service started. I kind of think it's odd that I never heard anyone complaining about it when the evil overlord and I started driving in 1997. I can't imagine having one measly hour more would make much of a difference. But I digress. That's a different podcast altogether. In general, drivers have been screaming that the unrelenting 14-hour clock makes the roads less safe, not more. The reasoning is that we often don't have time to pull over to take a nap or get off the road during rush hour if we want to get the most out of our driving hours. We aren't wrong. Let's look at it. You've got 11 hours to drive and 14 hours to do it. That leaves 3 hours to play with. Well, that seems like sufficient time, right? Well, if you believe that, clearly you haven't been trucking for very long. I'm talking to you, FMCSA rule makers. Okay, you use at least 15 minutes at the beginning of your day for a pre-trip inspection. You probably lose another 15 minutes fueling, possibly more. Most carriers require you to log at least 15 minutes checking into and out of a customer. So if you have both a pickup and a delivery on the same day, there's another 30 minutes gone right there. Add that up, and that's 1 hour minimum of the 14 hours eaten up right there. Now you got 2 hours to play with. But loading and unloading takes time. Sometimes lots of time. You could easily waste 2 hours at one of those customers. Heck, a lot of carriers allow a customer 2 hours before they even start charging them for detaining their driver. Some still don't charge them at all. Seriously though, it's not uncommon at all for a trucker to waste 4 or 5 hours of their day loading or unloading. And that's just not cool. So now you're eating into your 11 hours drive time. Now, every trucker already understands this term, but I'll explain it for the non-truckers. Let's say you wake up after a 10-hour break and you're ready to roll at 8 a.m. You do a pre-trip inspection, fuel, drive 8 hours to the delivery, and sit around for 3 hours getting unloaded. That's 11.5 hours total. So you still have 3 more hours to drive, right? 11 hours maximum minus the 8 hours you've already driven, that equals 3 hours. Well, you would if the 14-hour rule didn't exist. Instead, you actually only have 2.5 hours to drive. You see, you started your day at 8 a.m., which means your 14 hours is up at 10 p.m. But we said you've used 11.5 hours of your time with driving, fueling, inspections, and loading. So now it's 7:30 p.m. Again, this is going to get confusing. Look at the text version. Link in the show notes. Now, we remember we said you must be done driving by 10 p.m., right? Therefore, you actually only get to drive 2.5 more hours, not 3 hours. This is how we drivers lose drive time, also known as eating into our drive time. So basically, we just lost money because we couldn't drive all 11 hours we had available. Yeah, I realize it's only 30 minutes of our drive time lost in this scenario, but imagine if it had taken even longer to unload. If we were there for 5 hours instead of 3, that would have been 2.5 hours of lost productivity. Not only am I losing money, but my employer also lost the revenue I could have been making for them with those unused drive hours. And let's not forget the safety factor. A driver may want to take a nap or get off the road to avoid rush hour, but remember, any time spent not driving is money they aren't earning. So drivers can't always sleep when they'd like to, nor can they avoid heavy traffic if they're butting up against the 14-hour rule. Well, they could, but in reality, we all know what's going to win that battle when there's money on the line. According to their website, the primary mission of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, is to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving large trucks and buses. Link in the show notes to their website. So how exactly does that mission statement line up with what you just heard? We can't always sleep when we want to, and we can't always avoid heavy traffic either. So I'm confused. Enter the 14-hour pause. Sticking with the FMCSA's adding flexibility goal, the newly proposed rule allows for up to a 3-hour pause in the 14-hour workday, which basically results in the 14 hours being extended into a 17-hour workday under certain circumstances. Yes, I know that sounds awful. We'll discuss that bit of controversy here in a bit. Now, under the new rule, it would add the option to pause the workday with one continuous off-duty break of at least 30 minutes, but not more than 3 hours continuous. The length of this break relates to how long the 14 hours is extended. So, a 30-minute break, or pause, would extend the 14 hours to 14.5 hours. But if you took the full 3-hour break, you'd get to extend out to 17 hours. Now let's have another look and see how our earlier 14-hour scenario would have played out if we could have used the new pause feature. If you recall, you took a 3-hour break at the delivery location. Under the new rule, you could claim that 3 hours is a 3-hour pause, which means the 14 is magically extended to 17 hours. Voila! Not only are you not losing any of your valuable drive time, but you'd still have 2.5 hours to stop and take that nap or avoid the loop from hell, commonly known as Atlanta rush hour. Mission accomplished. And that finishes off the 5 new proposed hours of service changes. But of course, that's not the end of it. There's always controversy. Now, in a surprise that I don't think any trucker in the know would have anticipated, both the American Trucking Association, or ATA, and the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, OIDA, they both quickly praised the newly proposed rules. Now, if you're not in the know, these two industry trade group rivals often clash because one is speaking for owner-operators and the other represents many of the largest carriers. But like anything in trucking, not everyone agrees that the proposal is so great, and for good reason. I've included a link in the show notes to that overdriveonline.com article about some of these controversies. So, what are some of the main concerns? All right, first, there's really not much downside to the adverse driving conditions rule, the new 30-minute rule, or the added 7 and 3 sleeper berth. But of course, there's always something to complain about. Always. Again, the FMCSA sees all this as adding flexibility. I guess that really depends on your point of view. The first complaint has to do with the time extensions associated with both the short haul exception and the pause feature. Let's address the short haul exception first. Now, obviously, jumping from 12 hours to a 14-hour workday could be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, depending on your viewpoint. First, the good. If you're paid hourly, that's an extra 2 hours of pay, isn't it? And if that 2 hours puts you into overtime land, then that's some major extra bling bling for your neck. You're going to be so totally gangsta if this new rule goes into effect. Likewise, if you're paid by the mile or per load, having an extra 2 hours to play with might let you squeeze in a few more miles or cram in one more extra load before the 14-hour clock ticks down. You know, it really is such a helpless feeling when your paycheck is affected by something that's completely out of your control. I mean, think traffic or mechanical failure. That 2 hours could mean a big difference. The downside of this rule is that if you simply don't want to work the extra 2 hours, you may be screwed. I think the verdict is still out on whether a driver will have any choice in the matter. Well, I suppose they always have a choice, right? It's just that their choice might be to find a new company who won't force you to work the extra 2 hours. Now on to the 14-hour pause. Much like the short haul exception, the pause rule has a lot of potential to be abused by shippers and receivers and trucking companies alike. Will a carrier expect you to take the pause to maximize your workday? Probably. Their logic will be that if you can use the pause, then you should use the pause. Many drivers will disagree. Now I'm going to have to side with the truckers here. Surprise, surprise. Nowhere in these proposed rules did I see where it says this pause is mandatory. So I think we can expect to have to continuously lock horns with our dispatchers about it. Now, having said that, it's important that you have this discussion with them. Don't just do what they tell you to do because you don't want to get in trouble. That's a rookie mistake. Remember that someone is always hiring in the trucking industry. That means they need you more than you need them. If you don't want to utilize the pause, then don't. If they keep trying to force it on you, find another employer who won't. It's really that simple. Believe it or not, there are carriers out there that'll do the right thing. But hey, if you're willing to do a pause to maximize your earning potential and your opportunity to control your time, then have at it. I know I would. Although to be honest, most of these proposed new rules won't make a lick of difference to me with my new LTL job. But I think the shippers and receivers are a bigger concern. They already show a blatant disregard for a trucker's time. I fear that their attitude now will be like, hey, we have an extra 3 hours to play with. Again, much like the carriers, they'll think we'll want to use the pause feature. In reality, no trucker wants to work a 14-hour workday, let alone a 17-hour day. Jeez. But many of us will if it'll maximize our efficiency. Now, obviously, if you're an owner-operator, you have the option to avoid customers who abuse the pause feature. But my guess is most company drivers will have to suck it up like buttercup. Now, it might be tempting to stand on the sidelines thinking you don't have any control here. But remember the horrible 34-hour rule from 2013 that required 2 breaks between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. in order it to be counted as a legal break? And what about the fact that you could only use a 34-hour break once per week to reset your 70 hours? Yeah, remember those? Well, both of those stupid rules were suspended in 2014 due to lots of criticism from drivers like you. So here's your chance to do it again. Is there something you'd like to see change with these new rules? If you need an easy guide to the proposed changes, then check out the link I've included in the show notes. Then, when you're all loaded up with knowledge and a bucket full of opinions, go and submit your comments. You only have until October 7th, 2019. Although I have to mention here, after the fact that I just saw an article that said that the ATA, I believe the ATA is already asking for an extension on this commenting period. They're saying October 7th is not enough because they really want this thing to pass. So you might have some extra time, but why take a risk with it? Anyway, let's sum this puppy up. In general, I think these proposed changes are good for truckers, as long as you don't let anyone force you into working longer hours just because you legally can. Now, as much as I hate to admit it, the FMCSA actually came through with their promise to add flexibility to the current hours of service. All 5 proposed changes do just that. Now we just have to see what ultimately makes the cut. Listen, some drivers are going to love these new rules. Some will hate it for good reasons. Others will hate it simply because it's yet another change. I think trucker Logan Tarr puts it best on Facebook when he asks complaining truck drivers, quote, "Sounds good to me. I don't really know what y'all want. They take away flexibility with the ELD mandate and you complain. They try to add flexibility and you complain." End quote. I simply recall the old joke. What's the difference between a puppy and a trucker? The puppy quits whining eventually.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
I don't know why that stupid truck driver always asks me where I want the load of feedback. I always tell him to put it in the exact same place. All right, let's get on with it. We got 4 of them today. I promised Lenny we'd get to his last episode, and, well, we're getting to it. He read, looks like a Trucker Dump 95, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. Obviously, there'll be a link in the show notes to that. Let's see what he has to say. He writes, some of my scariest tailgating experience were on the East Coast going south on I-70. The highways in this area were 2 lanes, and I'm a bit of a nervous driver, so I like to stick in the right lane. This incident happened about 4 separate times, 4 separate trucks within the span of a few hours between Virginia and the northern part of North Carolina. Okay. Well, Lenny, I don't want to be a stickler, but you weren't on I-70 because I-70 doesn't go into Virginia and North Carolina. I know it's beside the point, but just had to point that out. I know some truckers sitting in their truck right now hearing this going, wait a second, I-70 doesn't run there. Anyway, let's move on with it. He's going to reference that again, by the way, so just relax, drivers. Just relax. He goes on. Basically, the scenario would be this. I'm driving behind an 18-wheeler at a distance I feel is reasonable and safe. I should point out, Lenny is in a car. There is another 18-wheeler behind me. The traffic builds up and slows down. Far too many people on the left to get out of the lane. Remember, he says it's I-70 in 2 lanes. No, it's not I-70. But anyway, he goes on. To be expected, I guess, since there's traffic on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, probably rush hour. The truck in front of me slows down. I slow down. The truck behind me doesn't want to. He gets close enough to me that I can see nothing out of my rearview mirror but the truck grill, and I'm pressed up against the back of the other truck, literally about 4 or 5 feet from the bumper because I'm trying to not get hit by the a-hole behind me. He keeps getting closer. I try everything. I lay on the horn. I turn on my hazards. I lean my hand out of the window and try to gesture him to back off a little. I can't change lanes because of the traffic. We're going between 45 and 70 mile an hour at any point. If I get hit by him, my girlfriend and I get sandwiched and die for sure. It eventually gets to the point where I have no choice but to peel off onto the shoulder because he's so darn close to my car and I'm scared for my life. I can't get any plate numbers because they're going 70 and I'm focusing on not crashing in a ditch and dying. Well, that's a good place to focus your efforts there, Lenny. I understand. He goes on. Again, this happened about 4 separate times, and probably it would have happened more if I hadn't gotten off the highway and taken back roads the rest of the way home. It added about 3 or 4 extra hours to the trip, but I'd rather it be that than dying. Good choice. He says, plus, we were both absolutely terrified for it to happen again. Needless to say, we're both scared stiff of trucks on the highway. I'm a strong believer in 2 is a coincidence, but 3 is a pattern. So is there something I'm doing here that's wrong, or were these specific truckers just all a-holes? Well, Lenny, I don't know how to answer that, honestly. I suppose they could have all just been a-holes, but, I wasn't there. So the thing is, there are a-hole truckers, of course, out here, but to find, you say 3 or 4 of them, 4 separate times, for that to happen 4 separate times, I've got to wonder if there was some other factor going on here. I don't know why they would, cram you in between each other like that. Now, I can imagine when you're waving at that trucker trying to back him off, he might have just become belligerent because, well, truckers don't like to be told what to do by 4-wheelers. But other than that, when you're going, 45 to 70 mile an hour down the road and they're cramming you in like that, I don't understand why they would do that. Most truckers would not do that. Isolated case? I honestly don't know. I am sorry for your experience. That sucks for you. I apologize for all the truckers out here who would never do that, because that is most of the people who listen to this podcast. Anyway, Lenny, thanks for writing in, and sorry I didn't respond like I was supposed to because I'm not cool. Next up, let's hear from our old friend David White, who you probably know as Driver Dave. He writes, "Greetings, Todd. So how goes the new job? I can see you being nervous about an unknown quantity, but you'll do fine. You'll definitely enjoy being home more. Well, that's true, Dave. It is very true, although the evil overlord sitting in the other room listening to me rattle on for 3 or 4 hours while I record this is probably not so happy that I'm home right now. But anyway, I'm definitely glad to be home. I definitely love my job a lot more, and I certainly love the pay a lot more. He goes on, I've never been gone more than 1 week in 38 years. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. He says, don't know how you did it. Yeah, me neither. You might not enjoy the equipment that you said is less than stellar. Yeah, I don't enjoy that part of it, but what are you going to do? He says, how much are the union dues? $59 right now. That's pretty cheap compared to, considering I pay union dues of $59 per month when I and the insurance is free. And, so that's pretty awesome. I used to pay $150 a week for insurance. Now I'm basically paying $59 a month for insurance. So anyway, he says you'll no doubt be gathering material for another episode. Actually, I already came out with another episode since you wrote this and you've already heard it. Anyway, here's a sleep apnea story. He says, I know a driver, kind of a short guy, who was used to running a bunk cab. And one day they gave him a day cab. He parked the thing after a long day and got up and stepped over the shifter to walk right into the back window. He says, I reckon he got a motel after that. Yeah. He says he must have been real tired. He told me the story. Yeah. He says, as far as the sleep apnea thing, if they need to test all of us drivers, well, has anyone noticed we share the roadways with four-wheelers? Line all those guys up and test every one of them. I bet you there'll be pushback on that. Yeah, I bet you're right. He goes on, but if one of them falls asleep and shoots through the median and takes out a load of hazmat, they can be just as dangerous as us. I'm a sleep apnea guy. I got the machine and I love it. I'm getting quality sleep every night. One weekend, I forgot the unit in the big truck and didn't want to drive back to the yard to get it. Miserable weekend and reset. I was never so glad to go back to work just so I could sleep. Hey, what were we saying earlier about the sleep apnea? How I was telling you everybody I knew who had a CPAP mask said they absolutely loved it. Well, here's Driver Dave backing me up. Thanks, Driver Dave. He also says, okay, thanks for the Trucker Path app recommendation. I got the app. It does work in Canada and I like it. I'm seeing places I didn't know about. Anyway, enjoy the new run with the snowplow on the smart car. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I don't remember what episode I said that in, but yeah, I thought that was pretty funny and very clever myself. Hey, somebody's got to think I'm clever. Anyway, Driver Dave, thank you for writing in. As always, I appreciate it. Very funny story about the guy walking into the cab area. I can't stand up in the cab of a day cab, but I have to bend over. And it's funny because we've got some people that I know on our fleet who can stand up fully in it, and we like to tease them about that. All right, let's move on to Christopher. This is a long one, but it's a good one, and it asks for your opinion. So let's go. Christopher, which is an awesome first name because I share it. He says, hey, Todd, I recently found your podcast and have been binging episodes at work. Great show and a great way to pass the miles. I had a question I wanted to run by you and perhaps some experience over the road, guys. But first, a little background on my situation. I'm 25. I've been driving for the last 3 years, but never over the road. I worked for UPS as a truck loader for 3 years before letting some of the rig drivers convince me to get my CDL. I went to a community college trucking program out there in upstate New York, got my license, and did 1 year with UPS as a feeder cover driver, covering extra loads and vacationing driver routes. The work was enjoyable, but there just wasn't enough to make ends meet. I went on to get my hazmat and tanker endorsements, and a local fuel hauling job fell into my lap. I've been there for the last 2 years and absolutely love it. However, I've never been a fan of the cold weather in New York, and this last winter seems to be dragging its feet hard, making me really contemplate packing up and moving south. I've been to North Carolina a few times and really like the Wilmington area. This is where my question comes in. The only thing holding me back from starting over someplace new is I have a 130-pound Great Dane. Oh my. He doesn't do well on his own for long periods of time. I currently work 12-hour shifts, 4 hours a night, and my roommate helps out with the dog while I'm gone. I'm confident I could find another local petroleum job just about anywhere, but I wouldn't have family or friends to help out down there. Ideally, I'd like to just bring him on board with me. He's very well trained and does well in the car. The over-the-road lifestyle has always appealed to me from back when I was in school and recruiters would come in and talk about their time on the road. I had local work lined up before I ever had a license, so I didn't give over-the-road much thought. However, listening to your podcast has heightened my interest again in going over the road. I could see myself doing long haul with my dog to keep me company. It would be a great way to see the country, get out and explore a new city every night, as his favorite thing to do is walk places and meet new people. He's been everywhere with me, from my beach trips in North Carolina to even Times Square in New York City one time. He got some strange looks there. Yeah, I bet he did. He goes on. Am I pipe dreaming, or is this doable? I know most carriers are not pet friendly, and those who are draw the line at 50 pounds or so, but how strictly are the weight limits enforced out there? Also, I haven't totally ruled out owner-operator. I've looked into it before and decided I'd rather play it safe and be a company guy first. But if I could make at least what I make now and be able to bring the pup along, I think it would push me to do it. So my questions are, is having a dog on board as a newbie going over the road going to be way more stressful than I realize, even if I am confident behind the wheel already? Do you know of any carriers who allow large dogs? And am I just flat out in way over my head thinking I could do the owner-operator deal all on top of this? Also, if I'm happy with how much I make and how much home time I have as a local guy, would you even consider trading that in to do over the road, or don't fix it if it ain't broken? Thanks in advance for the advice and for all the time you put into the show. Chris. All right, Chris, thanks for the question. You know, I've never had a pet in the truck, so I reached out to the Trucker Dump community on Facebook and Slack to see if I could get some good answers for you. But we'll get to those in a minute. Okay, as for exploring new places with your dog, well, that sounds great in theory, but I'm not sure how practical it's going to be. Most of the truck stops aren't near downtown areas, and I'm not sure how many Ubers or taxi cabs would haul your mammoth dog around. You may have heard me mention my friend driver Chris Mack on the podcast before. He has a large pit bull. Hi, Brutus. And I think he usually has to leave him in the truck or in a motel room when he goes exploring. But again, I stress not to just take my word for this. This is why I have a community of truckers that contribute to the show. I'm sure they're going to have some better answers than I can provide, and they do. We'll get to those in a minute. But you know, Chris, I don't think bringing your dog along will add any stress. In fact, most people say having an animal along reduces your stress. I could totally see that. You just have to get them out and walk them and do their business, but you're already used to doing that, so it shouldn't be any big change for you. All right, before we move on to the trucking part of answering your question, let's head over to Facebook. I wrote in there, a new listener just wrote in asking what companies will allow a 130-pound Great Dane. Also, when carriers have weight restrictions on animals, how strict are they with enforcing it? Greg Wood writes, I'm not sure, but I've seen a few Rotties on the road, Rottweilers. Large pit bulls are fairly common too. Travis Jellison, who is also in the Trucker Dump Slack group, said, I would not recommend a dog that large in the truck. And Jeff Hardy agrees. He says it's definitely not fair to the dog. Paul Dirkcatch says, where are you planning to sleep in that truck? I agree. Can't see that being good for the dog. That dog is going to take up a lot of that sleeper. You got to remember that's only a twin in there. Probably, God, that dog's probably too big for the floor too. I have seen lots of large dogs in trucks, but you know, I can see where it wouldn't be ideal for the dog, honestly. Gwendolyn Flory Vella, who goes by Furiosa, she says, if you want to figure out where to put the dog, put him in the trailer. Pretty sure she's joking there. That's pretty funny though. Dwayne Gravitt, who is also in the Trucker Dump Slack group. I think he's just Dwayne in there. He says to try Prime. I think they have a large dog policy. Well, I know that's where driver Chris Mack works, and they allow at least pit bull sized dogs. Friend Shannon Holden, who is Shannon in the Trucker Dump Slack group, and also the guy we interviewed on the last podcast, he says, I think he needs to consider the well-being of his pet, not just the company, if the company will or will not allow it. If he has no other choice, then I'd rather see the Great Dane with his owner than in a shelter. But personally speaking, I believe that breed is too large for a semi. However, I have two beautiful, well-behaved pit bulls, and I wouldn't think twice about taking one of them in a semi with me. But a Great Dane is almost twice the size of a pit bull. That is very true. So you can take that with a grain of salt, or you can take it to heart. And quite honestly, Chris, you've probably already done what you want to do, because I think this email was from back in March. But anyway, let's get back to your trucking stuff. You were asking about over the road versus local. Over the road versus local driving, it's really just a matter of preference and how much time you want off. There's nothing wrong with going over the road for a few years just to see the sights and then getting a local job after that again. You've already had the local job, so you know what to expect there. The only problem I foresee is that you'll likely make more money out on the road, and you could get accustomed to that extra money, making it more difficult to go back to local driving. Again, if you keep your expenses low and you don't start living high on the hog, then maybe that won't be such a big deal for you. Honestly, though, if you're planning on moving to a new area and have no support for your dog, your only option may be to go over the road. In my experience, most local companies don't want your animal in the truck. You might find a small local company to work for that would allow it, but I wouldn't count on it. As for the owner-operator thing, I'm not really sure what you're planning. If you're planning to go over the road as an owner-operator, I would not do that until you work over the road as an employee for a while to get the hang of it. What happens if you buy your own truck and then figure out that over the road isn't your thing? Now you're stuck with trying to sell a truck. Not to mention, you need to understand the basics of over the road before you try to tackle the intricacies of running your own business. Even if you plan to go owner-operator locally, you'd better have some good local freight lined up before you even attempt it. So anyway, Chris, I hope this helps. But like I said, you've probably already made this decision. Anyway, man. Sometimes it really stinks to not be able to get back to you folks as quick as I would like to. Oh, well, that is the nature of doing a monthly podcast. All right, last up, we're going to hear from Brad. Sorry, but I have a hard time saying the name Brad in just a normal way. The evil overlord and I always say it, Brad, and I really don't know why, except for we had a friend down in Dallas and we always used to say it that way. I have no idea why. Anyway, Brad writes, I've been listening to your past podcast over the last week and greatly appreciate all you share. I'm 48 years old and considering changing careers to become an over-the-road driver. I've never been a trucker. This would be a completely new career. What you have shared has been entertaining, but more importantly for me, informative. I keep hearing you refer to the Slack group, but I'm not sure how to join and find it. If you direct me there and let me join, I'd greatly appreciate it. Keep up the good work and good luck with your new job. Respectfully, Brad. Wow, respectfully. I feel fancy now, Brad. Thanks. All right. So, you guys have heard me talk about Slack about 1 million times, right? Well, Slack is basically just a glorified chat app. You can get in there. It's a private group. You have to have an invite. It's not a snobby thing. It's just the way Slack works. All you have to do is email me at truckerdump@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes and it'll take you directly to the email. And we'll send you out an invite and you can join the group. We got a great bunch of dudes over there and a couple of ladies. And it's just a great resource, especially for new truckers. If you are a new trucker, I would highly recommend joining this group because, well, you guys know Facebook. If you ask a question on there, any question is, people just jump all over it. They treat you like crap. Facebook sucks. But anyway, you're not going to get that in a Slack group. Nobody is going to make fun of you for your question. We've all been through what you've been before. We are all here to help, and just the nicest bunch of guys I've ever met in my life, and girls. Sorry. Sorry there, Furiosa. I keep forgetting you. Anyway, basically, like I said, just a glorified chat app. All you have to do is download the app on your phone. It's available in the App Store or the Google Play Store. It's free. Just sign up for an account. Just ask for the invite through the truckerdump@gmail.com email, and you can join that. Just a couple of things to know for anybody who's interested in this. This is a political free zone. We do not talk about politics at all because we get enough of that crap on Twitter and Facebook, and it just causes strife among people. You know, you can like someone until you find out what their political views are, and then you suddenly hate them for no apparent reason. So we try to keep that away. And secondly, we try to avoid religious topics as much as possible. And that's, you know, I am a Christian and I am happy to talk with people about it, but I don't feel this is the venue for it because, you know, if, I would not want to listen to somebody from another faith talk about their faith, you know, all the time. So out of respect, I don't do it to you. So, feel free to email me, truckerdump@gmail.com. If you'd like to talk about that though, I'd be happy to start up a conversation with you about it. The only other thing to know is that the app is really easy to use. When you first sign in, you'll be added to all the different channels, which is basically like different topics. And you're just added in there by default, so you don't miss anything, but you can drop out of anything you're not really interested in. Now, we have had a lot of activity in there lately, new members joining and stuff, but there's a caveat to that. It's a little weird. We've had, let's see, new members, James Culver, Brad Munn, David Simmons, Stephen Wilkie, Ryan McNeil, Mike Tango, Hector Garcia, and pardon me, Scott, but Scott Franciscovich. Yeah, all these guys are new to the group, but for some weird reason, nobody's really participating except for Scott. And I am not sure exactly what's going on. We show you our members of the group and you have been invited, but nobody's really saying anything. We're not seeing any activity. So, you know, if it's fine if you want to lurk in there, but if for some reason you thought you had been added, but you're not able to get in there, please email me and let me know so we can get that straightened out and get you to be a part of the group. That Slack has made some changes recently that's been kind of baffling to me, but I mean, still a good app, but the sign up process is a little weird. So again, if you're having any problems, email me truckerdump@gmail.com if you've signed up for this before and maybe you didn't get the invitation or whatever. And again, you can use Slack any way you want. You can be in there all the time, like some of us are, like me, Shannon, guys like that. And then, there's also guys like Dwayne and Cannon who they pipe in every once in a while and then they're gone for a little while. So just use it how you like it. You can come and go as you please. So Brad, I hope that answers your question, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to plug the Trucker Dump Slack group. Also, if you are an Apple-loving junkie, like an iPhone, iPad kind of person, Mac person, you can join the iTruckers group. Just email the iTruckers@gmail.com, and Shannon, who is the administrator over there, will get a invitation out to you ASAP. All right. Well, I think that about does it for this show, which is music to the evil overlord's ears sitting over there in the other room, wishing I would shut my pie hole. But it's pretty much over. I just have the outro to do, and then I'm done. Well, I've got about 4 hours of editing ahead of me and got to get the blooper reel together. So you know how that works. So anyway, let's exit the building. Music, please. So, what are your thoughts on the proposed hours of service changes? Wait! First, go tell the FMCSA by following the link in the show notes. Then keep me in the loop by shooting me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. You can also reach me on Twitter where I'm @Todd McCann. Of course, that's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Man, I love saying that. You can find all this contact info, show notes, and learn more about the books over at abouttruckdriving.com. And don't forget about the 25% off book combo pack for only $14.98. What a bargain. You know, I'm always up for iTunes reviews too. As always, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. And in the feedback section, we'll hear a story of a tailgating... that's not right. And in the feedback segment, we'll hear a tailgating story of a guy stuck in a truck. And in the feedback segment, we'll hear a... Gonna be a long night. Furthermore, there's a really cool laptop design. What is it? All right. Here's another story that I don't really care about, but I'm interested to hear your guys' feedback. All right. Here's another story that I don't really care about, but I'm interesting. I'm not interesting. I'm boring. You can't actually drink in your truck. You can drink outside of your truck. Oh, that's not good. But anyway, I guess a court said that they ruled that these companies were going, boy, I'm stumbling all over myself. Of course, if, these court settlements going on here ever get settled, it'll pretty much, be oh, good Lord. I am just awful today. Good God. And just as before, the FMCSA administrator, Ray Martinez, is asking for public comments until October 7th. It's a simple date. Why can't I say it? All right, let's go to an example. Under the coolant... All right, let's use an example here. Under the coolant rule... What's a coolant rule? Ugh. That's the difference in the coolant rule again. That's out of order. As long as it's 30 continuous minutes of combination of off-duty, sleeper berth, or on-duty, not drew it. The first complaint has to do with the time extensions associated. Why do I use such big words when I write? I'm not a fan of the split sleeper berth, but I don't think it's stupid, unlike another rule we won't mention. But I don't think it's stupid either, unlike another rule. But I don't think it's stupid either, unlike another rule we won't mention again. I was asking, proposed hours of service change number 4, the splits. Proposed hours of service change number 4, the split sleeper berth. What the heck is a split sleeper? Well, thank you, nickname 431. Although all I have to say about that nickname 431 is that you probably should subscribe to more than one podcast, and you might not have such a skewed sense of. Well, thank you, nickname 431. I appreciate that. However, I will have to say, it's easy to be the best podcast. Piss a brick.